Howdy, folks. Is my audio working right? Looks like
Yep,
maybe
we
it
can
is.
hear you, Greg. We can hear you. Hello, hello.
Alrighty. Well, I think we do have quorum now, so we can get started. Just pulling up my agenda. Okay, and I'll put a link in the chat if anybody else still needs it. I guess you all were faster than I was as I was daying for it. Yeah, so we'll call this meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee to order for November 10th of 2022. And let's see, the first thing that we have is recognition of public comment. So I see some folks that I'm not sure if I've met before, but is there any public comment tonight?
Chair Knaddison, we don't have anybody from the public, but can I call?
Oh yeah, roll call.
Roll
yes,
call.
Thank you.
Yeah. Chair Knaddison.
Present, thank you.
Vice Chair Lewis.
Present.
Member Sarno. Member Diedrich. Member Whitney.
Present.
Member Heller.
Present.
And then on the call, we also have Mayor Sierra, Deputy Director Host, Assistant City Manager Tim Dodd. And we also have Hillary Portel, who is the Executive Director of the Englewood Downtown Development Authority. And you have a quorum. Everyone.
Thank you. And I see member Diedrich joined the call as well. Just seconds after his name is called.
Yes, I did. I'm having a camera issue. I'm trying to pull it up right now for you, but yes, I did hear roll.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, everybody, for making it here today. So the next item up on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the September 8th meeting. If folks want to take a look at that, would love a motion. It's been a while, so I've forgotten about that BRT stuff, but it's very exciting.
Did anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I was absent, so I'm abstaining.
Sorry. Otherwise I
Second.
would. They look good,
just
but
don't-
I'm not sure on the validity.
I can second, but can I do that as an alternate member? I don't know fully what my role is.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if I am able to make a motion. I don't know if I need to have my video on for that or second, but I would second if I can.
I think it's pretty clear it's your voice, Member Diedrich. So unless somebody wants to say that he can't second, then, and I also don't know, Member Heller, thank you for offering that. I forget the rules exactly.
I
Chair, can I
believe in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to jump in. So whenever there is a missing member, Member Heller will be able to participate in the vote. And actually, I believe, Mr. Whitney, you would be able to participate in the vote as well, even though you were part of the meeting.
Great, thank you. So then I guess we've got a motion by Member Lewis and a second by Member Heller. And if there's any discussion of that, any corrections anybody sees that need to be made, pause for just a second. And let's go to a vote, if you would please. Michelle?
Chair Knaddison,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lewis,
Aye.
Member Sarna's not here. Member Diedrich,
Aye.
Member Whitney,
Aye.
and Member Heller.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Great, thank you. All righty, so we're down to item 5A, Englewood School Safety Concerns Follow-up.
I can speak to that a little bit, what we've done there, and then if Member Heller wants to let us know how things are working out there. I know we did, I think we changed the location of the bus drop off to the street to the north of the school, or the private drive. And I think there's a little bit of parking adjustments on Eastman there. The drop off zones there, I think, were adjusted as well. I think that was done a few weeks ago, but yeah, Member Heller, do you have any feedback on how that's been working since we made those changes?
Yeah, I'm still on my crosswalk duty, so I get lots of experience out there. I think it's great that the city worked together with the school to make sure that, you know, we were doing what was better for the community. And I think it solved the problem of the bus and giving them a space to be, I think that was the original design actually of the school, was that the bus was supposed to go in the back. I don't know necessarily the solution to fix the safety problems. I think that the signage could be still a lot clearer around there, around what's happening. There's still people that parks in the crosswalk or within a foot of the crosswalk, which I think when they park, they don't think it's a big deal, but then when they back up and there's people in the crosswalk, they don't always see them. And then the new problem, this isn't a new problem, but the other thing it's created is now that sorry, you guys, that's specific, but now that the cars are all lined up right there, people love to park on the other side of Eastman and then dart across traffic. So you have a car line and then throughway. And so as a crosswalk person, I'm trying to pull cars through to move the car line along, and other people are just not using any of the crosswalks and running across Eastman. So I think one thing that could be super helpful, probably with all schools in the district, is just very clear signage. And I don't know if that's a city thing or the schools that pay for that and do that. And then also just having a police presence at the beginning of the year and then throughout. I mean, we had an officer there the other day, and for something separate, I don't know what it was, but then he just left in the middle of dismissal. And I was like, oh, could you maybe go get all those people who are parked illegally while you're here? So just, you know, a bigger presence, not to like write a massive amount of tickets, but just to be the presence to talk to families so that teachers don't have to get yelled at and screamed at and, you know, all of those things. So I don't know if you're able to take that back, but I think just having police presence there to help correct some of that fairly regularly in all of the schools, especially for safety reasons, would be really great.
Definitely pass that along. Is there an officer? I think an officer brought up the initial concerns. Isn't there an officer there occasionally? Or it seems like that was an officer that kind of brought it to our attention initially there. Is there one there every
Well,
once in a while?
we called the officer.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I've personally called. I think the principal probably called. So anytime we have problems, we ask to have just someone come and see. And so I think
Okay.
that's what started it, was when we called, and then having the police officer see what was going on. It's just busy, you know, and I feel bad for the neighbors that are over there when people block the driveways and park all over the place. And it just could be a very pleasant, easy situation if everyone was just a little bit considerate about what was happening. So it's not horrible. I just think a little bit of police presence at the beginning of the year, and then throughout, you know, maybe once or twice a month, just to come and help out would be really nice.
We can definitely pass it along to the officer there that's in charge of the traffic enforcement, because it is a state law. You're not supposed to park within 20 feet of a crosswalk. That is a law.
20
but
feet?
Yes, 20 feet is the
Oh,
law.
jeez.
And for the reason you mentioned there, you know, if somebody's backing up or something, you don't want them to back over the crosswalk if somebody's in the crosswalk, you know. So that is it is a law, and that might help to have an officer there to remind people of that, make sure they understand how close you can park to a stop sign and a crosswalk and those types of things. Because there are laws for that. But yeah, we can definitely pass that on to the police department, see if they can help out with that a little bit. Like I said, all the schools, I think that's definitely something that would be helpful to, especially at the
Yeah.
start of the year, so people understand the rules of how to park and where to park and how the operation works there, so everybody's safe. So we'll definitely pass that on.
Yeah, and maybe just, you know, as we go fixing the signage every year a little bit, like, it stinks to have to pay for a sign that states something that's supposed to be already a traffic law, but it doesn't hurt to say, please don't park within 20 feet of crosswalk. Because it's certainly 20 feet isn't, yeah.
30 feet from a stop sign too. We see a lot of people park closer than 30 feet to a stop sign too. That tends to be an issue on some of our complaints we get for traffic items. So we have to remind people of that law as well. But yeah, we can definitely pass it on to police and see if there's some more presence they could have out there for us.
Thank you, that would be great.
Mayor Sierra?
Yeah, Jen, is this an issue both at drop off and pickup? I'm assuming so.
I can't comment on drop off. I'm not there. I drop off my own kiddo. I think drop off is probably, if I had to guess, a little bit less so, because parents can drop off from 7:35 to 8 o'clock. So you have a 25-minute range of drop off. Whereas with pickup, it's like everybody wants to get their kid in the car as fast as possible and leave. So I think that it's the congestion, right, in that short amount of time.
No, it makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Englewood does like painting on curbs to indicate what's allowed or not allowed in the area. But it occurs to me that like along with signage, that perhaps painting curbs within 20 feet of the crosswalk could be, it's a technique I've seen in other places that seems effective at communicating what's allowed or not allowed in a spot.
I think that would be hugely effective. And there's a fire hydrant on that corner too that everybody blocks pretty regularly. I actually submitted a claim to code enforcement because I think it was covered by bushes, but that's regularly blocked. And so yes, I suggested that at one point too, and I think we were told that the school pays for that on a certain sidewalk, but maybe if it's the ones that are in the street, I think that would be a great idea.
I don't think that's enforceable by the police doing that. I don't think that's a recognized traffic device or whatever. Painting curbs like that is, and we typically don't do that because it would be everywhere. We'd have to do that, and it'd be a lot of paint to maintain. And so we usually try to educate people more than try to use the paint so people understand. But yeah, the paint is really not something we can enforce on. It's not a legal traffic device, I guess, that we can enforce on.
And I'm thinking about like enforcement is one thing, but also what's effective is another measure, even if we couldn't enforce tickets, but if it gets people to change their behavior, then that would be worthwhile. But I understand if it's not the practice of the city.
But if the law is not to park within 20 feet of the crosswalk, then it doesn't matter if it's painted or not. It's still enforceable because they're breaking the law of parking too close to a crosswalk. So if it was painted, to your point, it could change the behavior. But yes, you could enforce it because they're parked too close to the crosswalk, which is the law, right?
Well, that's just something the city can't really take on, painting all those curbs. That'd be a lot of maintenance and costs. And like I said, that just hasn't been the practice historically to do something like that. It's a lot of work, and yeah, if we had to paint every stop sign like that, it'd be very difficult. So we usually avoid that. That's not really typical in the metro area anywhere to paint the curbs like that. But I think they have, the school maybe wanted to take something like that on and maintain it. I think that could be something that could be considered. But yeah, I don't think the city could really afford to do that. We don't have the staff or anything to maintain something like that. But if that is something that's of interest, we can look into it a little more and see if that might be something we could work together on.
Well, I'm glad to hear the update from the first part, just that things are mostly getting better. Glad to hear like the bus location has changed. Any other thoughts or questions on this topic? All righty. There's that 10-second pause for unmuting and speaking up, so time has passed. Next up item is Federal Boulevard Bus Rapid Transit 30% design and NEPA project update.
Tim, did you want to update him on that one there? I think you've got the information on how that's progressed since our last meeting.
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I wasn't here. So Tim Dottis is the city manager, but also been the interim public works director, which is why I'm on this call since August 28th through December 5th when our new director, Victor Rochelle, starts. So happy to join all of you today, and thanks to Michelle and Tim for their work in coordinating this group. So we did have a meeting a few weeks ago with CDOT on a few different projects. As you probably know from the presentation you got, I think in September, from Dodie in Denver. At the time, Denver was really coordinating this. They were trying to engage other cities. They were asking Englewood to provide $350,000. Since that time, CDOT has actually gotten involved and essentially is now coordinating the project. So they fronted the part that Englewood would have had to pay. They fronted, or what they would have asked us to pay, I should say. They fronted, I think, a few other cities. And so they're moving forward with the studies. There was a meeting yesterday. There's been some movement on it. We're at a point right now where they're still including Englewood in this project. So we definitely want to make sure that we're involved as discussions unfold, as the project moves forward. That's really it. Just wanted to let you know that it is moving forward and that we didn't have to pay anything for it.
Yeah, I'm glad that ended up working out. I know it was a hard decision, or it felt like a hard decision to me to not want to get involved there because it seems like the benefits are big. So it's nice that they were able to find some other money to fund that work. Seems like it could be really valuable. Any other thoughts or questions on that topic? Okay. Under new business, we have Pedestrian Safety Month in October. Update the ETAC Pedestrian Safety Mobility document.
Dodd, did you want to introduce Ped Safety Month, or should I just get going?
Yeah, if you're okay with it, Hillary, if I could just do a really quick introduction to it, and then turn it over to you for more details. And I'm just going to use really quickly the presentation that I gave along with Hillary and our Deputy Police Chief to City Council on October 24th. So October was Pedestrian Safety Month. We wanted to recognize it here in Englewood just by recognizing the issue that it is, both locally and nationally and internationally. We also did discuss Vision Zero with Council, which you may be familiar with. So Vision Zero is a program that started in Sweden, but it's been adopted by many communities in the United States. It's sometimes called different things, but Vision Zero is the terminology that is used here locally through Dr. Cog, and essentially it's a strategy that is really designed to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries. Also with a focus on things like safety, health, and equitable mobility for all. And so I'm happy to, through Michelle, send this whole deck to you. Won't go through it in detail, but as I mentioned, there is a regional initiative. So Dr. Cobb kicked this off in 2019. They published about a 100-page toolkit that's very helpful. And their focus was on complete streets, which Hillary will talk more about, equity, and safe speeds. I think a really important example of all of this is Washington State. So in the late 1990s, Washington State adopted something very similar to Vision Zero called Target Zero, and they basically set a 31-year target from 1999 or 2000, sorry, to a 30-year target 2030 to basically have zero traffic-related deaths and severe injuries. And so really, they haven't achieved it, but they've made great progress. And I think that's the key thing with a stretch target like this is you don't always get there, but the idea is that you're going all in on it. And so they basically identified 12 different areas that they thought were causes or were documented causes of severe injuries and fatalities related to transportation. And so they worked on fixing those. So some of those involved inebriation, not wearing safety devices, and things like that. And so the concept here is that even if you don't reach that stretch target, you're still kind of being able to go all in on it. We did talk a little bit with council about other programs like Safe Routes to School and Complete Streets. I am proud to say we were able to get a grant application in for a Safe Routes to School program. The city's strategic plan actually does have a transportation safety goal. And council's actually asked me to come back later in November when I do my Q3 update and presentation on our city's strategic plan with a Vision Zero concept and goal and related strategies to add to it. But there was an existing transportation safety goal. It had 4 projects. One of the projects was to map out 3 safe routes to 3 schools, to map out safe routes to school to 3 schools in Englewood. We were able to engage the school district in the last few weeks. And so we did submit an application on behalf of the city with the school district as a partner in the application. We asked for about $25,000 that would help us for Clayton Elementary School, which was a school that was identified by the school district of high need. They only actually have 6 students who take the bus. They have a very high percentage of students who do walk and do bike. And so that's where they decided to focus. And so the grant would basically be for us to work with our on-call traffic engineer, if it is successful, to design safe routes to school, to also do engagement with parents, with the community, with students, to incorporate it into the curriculum of that school, and then also to develop a usable map that will be online, also printed copies, and a mobile app. So we are hopeful about that. If it doesn't work out, Tim Hose and I have been talking about a few alternatives to try to do some of that work in-house. And so just as I mentioned, we do have these 4 projects. One of them involves the ETAC in our strategic plan, involving kind of quick strikes or reviewing specific dangerous intersections. We also, at that meeting with council, there was a separate study session on the Dartmouth traffic calming project that Tim Hose can talk more about, and also some of the pedestrian improvements that are being made around the Malley Center. And so now I'll turn it over to Hillary to talk more about the downtown area.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tim. Michelle, are you putting up my presentation or do I do that?
I can do that for you.
Okay, and then I'm able to move the slides as a panelist.
You won't. So let me give you access so you can share that. I'm sorry.
I can pull it up too, whatever's easiest.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
How's that? Can everybody see
Perfect.
that?
We see it. Yep.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much for inviting me to give this update to your group. The Englewood Downtown Development Authority is very focused on mobility and pedestrian safety throughout the downtown area. And as we've gotten sort of rolling on implementation, it's become clear to us, Mayor Sierra is on our board, I've been working a great deal with Tim Hoos and his crew on a number of projects, and then got to working with Tim Dodd on the Vision Zero presentation to the City Council. We all sort of realized, wait a minute, we're aligning here, and we need to share information and see what the ETAC thinks, and see if you all would like to be involved or be informed or even be supportive of some of this work. So I will try to make haste here, because it is an evening, and I know everyone's time is short. Real quick, downtown development authorities are government entities created to partner with their city on revitalization efforts related to their central business district. We are charged with implementing the Englewood Downtown Plan. We say we're a champion for downtown, partnering with the city and others, including you, to make it more economically vibrant, connected, safe, and green. Our board is appointed by City Council. They're a fantastic group of local business and civic leaders, very dynamic and action-oriented. City Council approves our annual budget, and we are regulated by state statute. There are 19 downtown development authorities in Colorado, and just on Tuesday, the city of Littleton voters created the 20th DDA. So we've been in touch with our colleagues down the road a little bit as they were getting organized. This is the defined downtown district. And what's new about this is that it includes more than the city's traditional definition of downtown as the South Broadway, few blocks in the center. What we're trying to do is create a more cohesive and connected central business district that includes the Englewood City Center area to the west, the South Broadway Main Street area in the center, and now what we're calling the Wellness District to the east, which is anchored by Swedish Hospital and Craig Hospital. There are 450 properties, 733 businesses, and over 400 residents in the downtown district. This is the only place in the city that I can operate. So when I'm talking about downtown or the community, this is my sandbox. I don't have a citywide purview. The Englewood Downtown Plan was created through a year-and-a-half public process in 2019 and 2020. During that time, 51% of community survey respondents said make downtown more bike and pedestrian friendly and accessible, and improve the safety of downtown as, quote, very important. So this is a high priority for the community. It's a high priority within the downtown plan, which is a long-term vision for the downtown area that includes these 5 different chapters, if you will. Tonight we'll be focusing on mobility and transportation. We're also involved in economic development, marketing, public space enhancements, and land use and urban design. The downtown plan really calls for strengthening connections between all 3 of what we call the sub areas, enhancing multimodal access, managing parking. Basically, we're looking at all the major corridors: Old Hamden, South Broadway, Englewood Parkway, Highway 285, and looking at safety, mobility, and accessibility improvements to all of those, as well as the high crash intersections. It's all done in partnership with the city. I can't go it alone, so please understand that everything we're doing is very tightly coordinated with a great number of city departments, mostly public works in this particular category. We'll also be working to strengthen and improve the Englewood trolley, having a more modern micro transit service that better serves peak periods for the downtown area is a real goal, so that we can make it easy to get around all 3 areas. I'm doing some grant research for our first 2 projects. I got some clarity on the extent of really vulnerable communities that live and are trying to get around our downtown district. We have a number of vulnerable populations who live, work, shop, and use area healthcare amenities and services within a mile of the South Broadway paseos, 49% of the households are low income, 14.5% of the population are seniors, 16.2% of the population are children, including very young children in strollers. 1,400 residents within 1 mile of the paseos have no vehicle. So they're getting around on foot or on bike or using buses, most likely. We also have a large community of disabled community members, with 12.5% of the city's population living with a disability. 1,100 people within a half a mile of Old Hampden are disabled, and 200 to 300 people per year are living in Englewood for 6 to 9 months while they're in rehabilitation at Craig Hospital. So this is a front of mind for us always when we're thinking about mobility and design of public spaces. I became a pedestrian safety advocate while raising our son and leading the Colfax Mayfair Business Improvement District in East Denver for the last 10 years. Like most big corridors in most cities, Colfax suffers from an outdated street design that prioritizes cars over people. And what that means is, if you look at the left-hand photo here, really wide travel lanes, no street furniture on the sides, very long blocks. The crosswalks are sometimes a football field, apart. There's virtually nothing in this street design that signals to motorists that people are present. Everything this design signals is hit the gas and try to miss the next light, and so we've got people like in the middle section, middle photo and the photo on the right, running to the median with their children in hand and waiting for cars to speed by and then sprinting to the other side of the street. It's not because they're doing that for fun. Frogger is not a fun game on Colfax Avenue. They're trying to get to Marzick's Fine Foods and an ice cream shop on the other side of the street, and the nearest lighted intersection is nearly a football field away. So what I learned from this really acutely is street design really matters, and it absolutely affects the psychology of motorists. It assigns priority to other users of the street, and you start to think more broadly about who else uses this public right of way, and how to design for that. And it can have a real kind of calming effect once the improvements are in. Colfax is one of the city's most dangerous corridors today, but we've advocated successfully for about a $300 million bus rapid transit and complete streets redesign of the entire 12-mile long Colfax Avenue stretch in Denver. That has taken nearly 15 years, and the project is currently scheduled to start in mid-2024. I have to tell you, it's very refreshing to be in a community that is leaning into this and looking at some more expeditious timeframes. This graphic says it all to me. If a pedestrian is hit by a vehicle that is going 20 miles per hour, there's a 13% likelihood of fatality or severe injury. If a pedestrian is hit by a vehicle going 30 miles per hour, Broadway is actually, the speed limit on Broadway is 25 miles per hour right now. There's a 40% likelihood of fatality or severe injury. If the motorist is going 40 miles per hour, there's a 73% likelihood of a pedestrian sustaining a fatality or severe injury. Now, layer on top of that are vulnerable communities. So what if the same situation is involving a senior who's using a cane, or a young family that is pushing strollers across the street, or somebody who's trying to get across the street with a wheelchair or a seeing eye dog? They need a little bit more time, and streets and speed are very unforgiving to these populations. And what do you know? Nobody's paying attention. We all know that, but it turns out that 91% of drivers surveyed in Colorado a year ago admitted they'd driven while distracted at least once in the past week, and more than half said they were often or always distracted when driving. I always told my son, always make eye contact before you step into a crosswalk with the driver, because they are not looking for you. They just aren't. So that got me involved in the Denver Streets Partnership, which is a coalition of community organizations that advocates for people-friendly streets in Denver. I have been serving on the steering committee since 2018. Englewood is kind of starting to look at some of these similar programs. The Denver Streets Partnership may expand to be metro-wide in the next year or two. And if that's the case, that might be something we all want to get involved in. There's a great deal of really great information and learning and advocacy and best practices to be gained from that. But in the meantime, we are now implementing a number of mobility and ped safety projects, again, working closely with Public Works and Tim Hoose's shop. The first one is the Old Hampton Complete Streets Project. This probably looks kind of similar to Colfax, not as bad, believe me, but here we have a kind of a bypass, gritty bypass frontage road. No street furniture on either side of the street, no street trees, no lighting at night, very wide travel lanes. So the outcome of that is a fairly high speed vehicular movements in a very chaotic situation, especially right now with so much new development underway. There's 1,600 new residential units under construction or in the pipeline, a 7-story hospital addition, a new medical office building, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've got, the condition here is that we've got a rapidly growing area with competing interests who also need to use this public right-of-way, including new residents, seniors who live in 5 different senior apartment communities along this corridor, people with disabilities who are living in and around the hospitals, customers of local businesses and restaurants, hospital employees, and their patients, many of whom are dealing with chronic health conditions. So we really need to transform this corridor into a safer, multimodal, and accessible street for everyone. We created a very inclusive stakeholder project advisory committee that Jennifer is serving on, and also Patrick Madrid, who used to be on the ETAC. But we did a corridor walk earlier this spring, and some of the participants do have disabilities, and boy did they give us a different view of what it's like to try to walk on along a street like this. Gail Hamilton, the senior who works with a seeing eye dog on the left here, showed us how many ADA ramps on corners send people into the intersection instead of into the crosswalk. It's an old design. It's common in communities across the United States, but it's something that we definitely will be correcting in this particular project. Also, a lot of the older storm grates are right, as she steps off, into the sidewalk, she could put her cane straight down into a storm grate. Similarly, a walker or a bicycle or a stroller could get stuck in a storm grate like that. So moving those storm grates was another good comment we got. A young woman who lives in a new condo across the street from the hospitals expressed concern about lack of safe crosswalks for people in wheelchairs like this condition here. But even worse, if you're in a wheelchair, your head is only 4 feet above the ground. And very often motorists are not looking at that level. So they're not very visible to most motorists. So the importance of having safer crosswalks is really important in that corridor. Now we've got some compelling crash data, which is something you always want to look for when you're looking at your priority areas. Between 2015 and 2019, there were 144 crashes on Old Hamden, including 1 fatality and 21 injuries. And that was before much of the current development that's underway now. So we're glad to be part of this very important project. This is just a quick rundown of a lot of the comments that the Project Advisory Committee made and how the resulting conceptual plans respond to that. The area is very dark at night. Lighting's very important. I'll show you this is kind of a cross section, but it shows what it could look like. Again, this is conceptual work. There's still another year of detailed planning that needs to be done, but you could have a very wide multimodal path on the north side with a landscape buffer on either side, a narrower travel lane. If you go from 13 feet to 11 feet wide, the psychological impact on a driver is, I'm in a busier area, I should probably slow down. And then having improved sidewalks, this doesn't show pedestrian scale lighting, benches, trash receptacles, bicycle racks, but all of that would get layered on as well. That's what the complete streets stuff is all about. We also received a grant from CDOT, almost $150,000 to enhance mobility and safety in the 2 paseos on South Broadway. Those improvements will probably begin next spring. And they include enhanced lighting, bicycle amenities, a wheelchair charging station. That's something new. And that was a suggestion by Craig Hospital, and enhanced landscape. Then we're working in conjunction with Public Works and help them put in a second grant application, which was approved by CDOT for $315,000 to install a hawk signal. I don't know if you can see that pretty well in that crosswalk between the 2 paseos. This is also a high priority safety situation. The police collected traffic data in 2021 that showed up to 52% of vehicles were traveling over the speed limit of 25 miles per hour, up to 45 miles per hour through the area. Remember that graphic about 45 miles per hour and hitting a pedestrian. It's a serious condition. And in fact, right after a stakeholder planning meeting that we had a few months ago, this collision happened right here, where a pedestrian was walking across the street. Fortunately, he got to about here when this Jeep suddenly came to a halt and this car crashed into it. This rapid flashing beacon isn't sufficient for the volume of traffic, the speed of traffic. It's not as visible as it should be in the daytime. And if you've walked there, I know you all have, a great many vehicles simply go straight through because it's a yellow light, and a yellow light in Colorado means, either hit the gas or, slow down. Either way, you're not stopping, right? So with a hawk light, we'll all have to get used to a new procedure here, but basically it is pedestrian operated. So there will be a button. You push it, the lights will flash yellow first, and then they'll hit red, and everybody's got to stop while the pedestrian crosses the road. And then it goes back to green, and traffic continues. The Federal Highway Association has reported that hawk signals can result in a 55% reduction in pedestrian crashes and 29% reduction in total crashes for intersections like this with more than 10,000 vehicles a day. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a really good safety improvement for everybody that we want to come downtown and enjoy dining and socializing and doing your daily, errands. We're also undertaking a multimodal parking and management planning project that's underway right now. You know, again, we want it to be easy for people to get in and around downtown, regardless of the mode they're using. So we want to make sure that there's available parking for cars, bikes, transit, shared car services like Uber and Lyft, and EV charging stations. We're coordinating with the city's EV planning on that front as well. The project will be looking at the South Broadway section and Old Hamden section of the downtown district. First, we're taking an inventory of all available public parking. Then we've got people out there right now, well, not tonight, but this week, looking at some specific areas on how often are there bikes parked there, or how often are vehicles parked in this particular lot? What kind of turnover are we seeing? When is there the peak availability of parking, and when is it really challenging? Then we're going to be looking at how to manage parking in those areas. It is a fascinating topic for some people. I'm kind of enjoying getting into it, but that would include, having timed parking, having overflow options. When do we need to increase our capacity of parking, and how might we do that? So it's a longer term planning effort. I hope you all will consider participating in an e-survey on your experience parking in downtown Englewood. Honestly, it's 7 questions, and it might take 5 minutes. You can find it on our website, englewooddowntown.com. Just click on mobility. It's also running on Facebook and Instagram right now, and we're going to be doing table tents in restaurants and businesses next week. And tell your friends to fill that up too. It's just a good way to kind of get some input from people who are experiencing things on a daily basis. One thing we're looking at, this would be a very bold project, a very transformative project, but we need to test its feasibility first. And the idea here is, what would it look like if we were able to daylight Little Dry Creek and create a multimodal greenway alongside it? Currently, the creek is, as you know, probably it goes underground at the Little Dry Creek Park, which is being revamped right now by the Parks Department. And it's underground for about a mile through this area, and eventually does connect to the South Platte River. So we're doing a feasibility study to look at what's the history of the creek, what is the purpose of it in the city, what role does it play in stormwater management in particular, how deep is it buried, what does the culvert look like, what volume of water does it take on a regular basis, what do the flooding studies show. If we were able to daylight it, could we move the channel a little bit if we needed to? Right now it goes across this private piece of property and this private piece of property. So could we move it sort of out of the way a bit so that these people can redevelop a little bit more feasibly, and this becomes a new multimodal east-west connection in downtown, a new green infrastructure amenity for everybody who's living and working in the city center area now and in the future. There are stormwater benefits as well. But we'll see, this photo on the right, by the way, is a similar project in downtown Castle Rock, where they revitalized a historic creek that ran through the downtown area, and a developer built residential housing on either side of it, and they created this bridge over the top, and it just immediately took hold in their downtown and brought this new healthy, sustainable, active elements that the downtown didn't have before. So we're working on existing conditions right now, and then we'll move into an alternatives analysis to test different options for daylighting the stream. The project does conclude in February, at which point we'll have more information about whether it's possible or not. But you never know until you ask the big questions. So if this is something that your committee is interested in, I'm happy to keep in touch with you on that. And you're certainly welcome to come to our board meetings when presentations are being made. In fact, the existing conditions presentation is this next Wednesday at 4:30 in the Malley Center. And then the last two projects that we're working on with community development is a study of making the Englewood Parkway multimodal and safer, and then how to enhance the Englewood trolley program. That will be, most of that will happen next year. So that's what we're up to.
That's great and very exciting stuff. Thank you so much. I have some thoughts, but want to just open it up first if anybody has any comments or questions.
This was great. Thank you so much for walking us through that.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's all fun stuff. And again, if any of you would like to be involved as a stakeholder or share information with other groups or come to our meetings, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, go ahead. Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much for presenting this. You've got a lot on your hands here, and it's a really quite a project, and that area has been subject to a couple of different iterations over the years. I love seeing the idea of the creek coming back up. That's something we've talked about in this committee quite a bit over the years, and
Oh, really?
oh yeah, it's been a very I wouldn't call it a hot topic, but it comes up pretty regularly. And especially because that area is a big parking lot right now. And historically there was a park with the creek raised up. And so connecting that trail down to the South Platte Trail just in general has been a challenge, and the opportunity of potentially raising the creek and the historic value of the water in Englewood. Also, it has been a neat idea that we've been talking about for a while, and it's nice to see some of those things coming together. And so I really appreciate you bringing that to the committee and sharing some of these. And it's, I'm interested. I didn't see much on your slide there about the interchange that's going in on 285 Broadway. It looked like you kind of were around that area, but didn't include that area. So
Yeah.
I know there's a lot going on with that, and if you guys can be involved in that process, I know it's pretty late in the game, but considering how that might affect some of the things that are going to go on down there, I think would be really important.
So we were invited to participate as a stakeholder in that project, and it was led by Public Works. So sometimes we're leading, sometimes we're stakeholders, sometimes we're partnering. It doesn't really matter what role we take as long as we're moving things forward.
This is great. And this is, I had a topic that I didn't get on the agenda, but I think you addressed actually some of the things that I wanted to bring up in my member's choice. So this was great to see some of those things coming into, the pedestrian friendliness and the connection of the multimodal transportation options that are throughout that area, I think is going to be really important for the long-term success. And I like some of the ideas that you guys have that look like some of the short-term fixes. And I know this committee has talked about quite a few things, including over on the Floyd corridor as well. There are a few projects coming in, so I'm looking forward to seeing how those come together. And I just want to offer, however we can help provide input on your perspective, as we are also looking at some of these other projects that involve this area too. In the broader city, it would be great if we can be involved or help out, however would be most helpful for you. Or I would like to be helpful if I can. And I think the committee probably broadly appreciates you bringing this to us tonight. So thank you for that.
You betcha. Fantastic.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Chris had to say, and just want to thank you again for sharing all those thoughts. And it feels like a really compelling set of ideas. And so I liked seeing definitely that graph about how speed impacts the outcomes of crashes is something that we've talked about before a couple different ways. And applying that idea to these situations is exciting. I think in Englewood we've also talked about how there's a lot of little islands of facilities for like we don't have a bike network so much as we have little islands of bikes infrastructure, and it seems like a lot of the plan that you laid out is about creating more of a network, more of a connected network that gets people from where they are to where they want to go. So that's all really exciting to see. Definitely feels like there's lots of opportunities for collaboration and working together. So yeah, thanks. I see Member Heller, your hand's up. Please go ahead.
Yep, I didn't want to interrupt. Are you finished? Okay. So I raise my hand. I have a question that's sort of bigger picture, so I don't know who this is addressed to, and I'm still relatively new to this commission, but when we hear like a presentation like this, or the 285 Broadway corridor, or the bus thing that, on down Federal, when do we know that they're a for sure deal and happening versus here's this presentation, we're doing this, oh, we got budget proposals in and we don't have the funds to do it, so we're not doing it. Like, as a citizen and as a member of the committee, I don't know when things are actually going to happen versus this is a presentation and then we're getting proposals and then we can't afford it. We don't have enough in that budget. Does that make sense?
I think that's a great question, and I've been involved for like 4 years or so, and don't feel, and was observer for a while before that, and don't feel like I have a good answer. So I guess it's exciting to hear. That was one thing that I really appreciated about what you had to say tonight, Hillary, is the leveraging different grants. I feel like that's been a way that the city has been able to get a lot of things done, which is really exciting. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, I was gonna request maybe Member Diedrich, if you had any thoughts as somebody who's been involved a long time, or Mayor Sierra. I saw you unmuted and was also going to ask you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I could jump in. I think that really falls on me. I think, not sure if we're getting some background noise there, but it would fall on me in order to kind of just like let you know when some projects occur. I know that we're going to be talking about like the traffic circles on Dartmouth. Obviously, that hasn't been approved just yet, but when it does, I think, obviously we do it as the city council, we provide the vote, but I don't think we have a mechanism right now where we clearly, tell the public that this is coming or that it's been approved and what the timeline is. So at least in terms of this border commission, I would be telling you at the next one after it's been approved, but still got to figure out a better way to communicate all the projects that we're working on that have been approved.
They all go through several stages. Typically there's a feasibility stage, and then conceptual planning, then detailed planning, then construction. And each phase requires funding and time. So, I presented to you tonight stuff that's in the feasibility stage, stuff that's in the detailed planning stage, and stuff that's about to be built. So I hope I wasn't confusing in how I presented those different projects.
So Mayor Sierra, if something has been approved by the city, though, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go forward, right? Because I know there's like, you have to approve it and then make plans for it, but then you get proposals to see how much it's going to cost to actually do it. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I guess you're right, because I guess we received the grant funding for like the South Broadway Hampton Bridge. We're still working through the mechanisms there. Same thing with Old Hampton. I guess you're right that there still is additional steps after that would have to occur in order for, shovels to be in the ground, I guess, in a sense, right?
Yeah, so it's possible that all of it gets planned, but then it actually can't happen because of budget constraints or like the proposals that came in.
Right.
I was just thinking
like
of 285 in particular. Like, is that going to happen? Or
which one, Jen?
Like 285 in Broadway, the bridge and all of that. Like, we've gotten so many updates I follow the city on social media, and we get a lot of those updates. And then I I believe, and I could very well have read this wrong, that the proposals were over the budget. And so like, I guess is at this point not happening? And so it could be approved, but then not happen, or at least later.
Right. No, it's a great question, Jen. No, we're still working on those. We're still trying to figure out, you're right, basically because of inflation and the cost of materials going up, the cost of the bridge was more than we allocated. So we're still trying to figure out a mechanism to make up that gap. So yeah, we're still waiting that out. I think if Tim's still on, Tim Dodd, I know that him and I have been having conversations about that with CDOT. So still trying to figure a way to get that one done. But you're right, there's still additional steps that need to happen in order for it to start.
I'd be happy to provide a little historical context if that's helpful too. Hillary had a good point. There's multiple stages to these studies and things and planning, and then there's grant applications and quite a process. And when I joined the committee, we were just going through walk and wheel master plan, for instance, and a couple of other things that were some bigger city planning documentation type of things and plans. And then out of that, as we've had opportunities to talk about some of these things in committees, we've gone to those grant stages. And, we had somebody at the city for a couple of years who was very good with the grants, and we had quite a few that came through. And of course, that funding changes a little bit, but we've seen quite a few things come through, even in the last 5 or 6 years. That the crosswalk on Broadway was something that we had talked about in this committee, kind of really pushed for, and now we're talking about some improvements to it. But there were things on the Paseo was part of that. Some other areas like the intersection at Broadway and Floyd, now they have that kind of turn lane there, and that was something that this committee had kind of advocated for as well. It just takes a little time in that budget cycle. And then earlier this year we did have opportunity to weigh in on budget, and the Public Works staff was patient with us to go through that cycle for a couple of hours, going through the budget and our requests and things. And so we have an opportunity to prioritize, and they've included us in that. So I think if we can keep doing that and work with some of these other groups that bring plans forward, that's our opportunity as the committee to kind of prioritize some of those things as well. Some of them are grant matching we've seen come through that are quick wins, but some of them are not quite as fast. And we've done some fun things like the creative sidewalks, the crosswalks that people can do, where we helped with the Arts Commission. We were able to do that quickly because it didn't take a vote or a lot of money to set up a program. So it kind of depends on the project, I guess, is what I'm trying to say too, with some of these things.
Yeah, one of the reasons why we're kind of starting out with mobility and ped safety projects is the availability of economic recovery funds that came through the federal government last year and the infrastructure bill this year. And, they're flowing through CDOT, which then funded the Paseo and Crosswalk project, and DRCOG, which is doing the Old Hampton and South Broadway projects. And hopefully we can get even more. I mean, the infrastructure bill does dedicate significant funding to multimodal connections, transit-oriented design. And so, we'd like to, get these things teed up in the event that we are able to, leverage some grant funding along with what we have in terms of local resources. The DDA is funded also independently. I didn't bring the graphic because it's kind of complicated, but basically within the downtown district, once we start, any new tax increment that's created through new customer, sales tax revenues, or new businesses moving into the area and expanding, or new development happening, the new increment can be utilized by the DDA to reinvest in the downtown area. That the base level of revenue the city continues to collect and use citywide as usual. So as that increment grows, we'll have more and more resources to reinvest in projects like these and leverage efforts with the city and other funders.
Member Whitney, yeah, see your hand raised, please go ahead.
So this is a totally new topic, if that's okay. Member Heller, do you have anything else on the topic? Are you okay? Okay, cool. So looking at the downtown safety and mobility enhancements, Hillary, it looks like 285 Hamden has a couple intersection improvements, but nothing really for pedestrian mobility. And I think I heard a great phrase called a strode. It's not really a street, it's not really a road. So if you
Yeah.
think about Santa Fe, right? Santa Fe is a great street, or it's a great thoroughfare, and not a lot of pedestrians are expected there. And then if you think, I think of that, it's a great road. And then you think about like our town and little streets everywhere, those are good for pedestrians. But when you get this mixture of a lot of businesses, a lot of high-speed traffic, you end up with a strode where you have a lot of different things happening at one time. So you look at that stretch that's part of the DDA, and you notice that that's like where all these cars are turning in. It's 3 lanes or 4 lanes at different parts on each side. So you have 8 lanes of traffic. For pedestrians to cross across, you have sidewalks there that are unprotected. There's no bike mobility, obviously, that would be taken care of on Girard. But I do know that there is a 285 study going on right now. I was curious if the DDA is a part of that, and if there's any thoughts on pedestrian mobility for 285 Hamden area, especially in the DDA's purview, because there are so many businesses there, and there's actually probably the possibility for people to maneuver there.
Absolutely. Tim, have I got a project for you, right? So that's a CDOT-led project, the Highway 285 Mobility and Pedestrian Safety Project. We're participating as a stakeholder. I hope you guys are. You probably are plugged into that. Recently, they asked for significant input on intersections along 285. And so we're advocating for multimodal and ped safety improvements to those key lighted intersections that serve City Center, South Broadway, and the Wellness District, because those are the ones that connect our community, and just today, the senior Gail Hamilton, I featured in my presentation, had called me saying, I want to walk across 285 at Clarkson Street because my medical appointments are over there and I don't have a ride. And I can't, can that intersection be safer? Hopefully it can, and so I put her directly in touch with the, project team for that one, to give them, really, really clear input from her perspective as somebody who's blind. But yeah, I hope you guys are involved too and can help us with that advocacy. The more voices we have, really, really making and I can send you the case I sent them on why we want these improvements, because at City Center, for example, as you point out, we've got largely residential and industrial uses on one side, and then all the destinations on the other side. And 285 divides, those two parts of the community, and it's a pretty big barrier to some folks, So as the populations grow on either side and need to get back and forth, those intersections absolutely need to be safer, in my opinion.
Wonderful. I just want to make sure the DDA was involved, and my apologies for not knowing that. I know Greg is involved. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's a case where it's a CDOT project, but I believe Tim Hoos, his department is leading it, right? As if you don't have enough to do.
We're trying to keep up with this.
There is a website for that project and a tool for community input. I'd be happy to send the link over through Michelle to distribute to you guys.
Yeah, that would be great. I have been sharing some of the information from them
Okay.
with the group as I've been part of the the CAC, Community Advisory Committee. Yeah.
You've got it handled then.
Yeah, but more reinforcement is, or like reiteration of the message is always good. Yeah. Alrighty, any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Well, thanks very much. It was great to hear from you, and so exciting. I sort of am aware of the DDA, but not the specifics of what you're doing. And this is just so much more than I imagined it would have been doing. So you clearly have been busy and working on, from my perspective, very valuable stuff. So thank you for also doing the work of sharing up the progress. Yeah. Alrighty, scroll back to the top of the agenda and I get to the Dartmouth Traffic Calming Project update.
Share my screen here. I've got a presentation for you to kind of go over where we're at with this one.
Great, thank you.
Coming through there, all right. So yeah, so this one here is a project that was started based on more safety concerns at the signalized intersection on Dartmouth between Broadway and University. There's 3 signals in that segment there, and the crash rates were a little higher than you typically expect to see at those types of intersections. So we applied for a grant for this one. This is a grant-funded project. We've got just over $1 million we got to make some improvements for safety, and the kind of go through the concept here where the consultant's been going on this and kind of the results they've come up with so far. And we want to get your feedback on kind of where we're headed, and as we go to final design, what you might want us to keep in mind as we move forward on this project. So first slide here is just kind of the segment there is right between Broadway and University on Dartmouth is where we're looking. And the purpose really is more safety on this one. It's there's been a lot of crashes at the signalized intersections, a lot of side impact crashes that cause a lot of bodily injury there. So there's a little more dangerous types of crashes. We're trying to prevent those and reduce those anyway, and then also reduce the speed and also make it a little more comfortable for bikes and peds. We've got the bike lane along there now. We want to make sure it's more comfortable for them, and the vehicles aren't speeding through there quite as quickly there. So that's all part of what we're trying to achieve with these improvements. Here's the little breakdown of each intersection, what is planned for each intersection in the corridor there. We've got the 3 signalized intersections at Logan, Clarkson, and Downing. So those are the ones we're looking at for the mini roundabout concept, is what the consultant's looking at doing on those to increase the safety on those, or replace the signal with mini roundabouts. And then these other bulb out intersections would be just bulb outs at the intersections there to shorten the pedestrian crossing distance and to narrow things up so cars will not feel quite as comfortable speeding through there anymore. So there's 6 of the bulb out intersections and 3 of the signals replacing with the roundabouts is the initial plan here. So the few little facts here about the project there. It's obviously a long straight roadway. That's why people speed. There's not a lot of stops through there, and people can get going pretty quickly before they have to stop at the next light. So Logan and Downing are the 2 intersections that have the higher than expected crashes. And otherwise, yeah, the other option we're looking at on this, for the mini roundabouts, we based on the budget, we may not be able to do them all in like a typical concrete roundabout you'd see with a raised curb and all that kind of thing, where we're looking, we may need to do a little more of a painting and post type of delineators and stuff to identify it as the roundabout configuration. So we're trying to figure out how much we can do in concrete and how much might have to be more paint and post type of improvements. But here's a little bit about the crash summary at those intersections there. As you see, there's quite a few injury crashes there. Most of them are injury crashes, actually. 80% are injury crashes, and that's due to the broadside crashes. Those are a little more severe than just a rear end or something, but or a side swipe or something. But yeah, and there's a lot of injury too. 28% injury. That's quite a bit for an intersection like that. So those are the conditions we're seeing, and that was a big reason why we were awarded the grant funding, is because of these data we have here showing what types of crashes are here. And we're hoping this grant funding can improve that and reduce those injury crashes. This is the evaluation the consultant went through of the different alternatives there we can do. We can first one we can do is just simply rebuild the signal. I'll kind of show a picture of that. It helps a little bit, but it still doesn't really improve the operation level of service. We're still a B at the intersections, A is the best. It's kind of like a school grade, A through F is kind of the grading. So you got the B still, even if you rebuild the signal, it doesn't really improve. Within the mini roundabout, it does get us up to an A and a B at Logan, and then A's at Clarkson and Downing. And that's really because we reduce a lot of the conflict points at those intersections. We don't have as many opportunities for cars to come in conflict with each other, so that really helps. So this is the paint and post option, and we've also got the mini roundabout with the curb and gutter, which is the more permanent island out in the middle there, and that's a similar improvement there, but it definitely more costly there, I think, is why we're kind of leaning a little more towards this paint and post option at this point, just based on our budget and stuff to make sure we have enough to actually do the improvements. So the next slide here will kind of show these intersection bulb outs. I think you've probably seen some of those around the city here, but the thought is you push the radius out into the intersection a little bit more to make the crossing distance a little shorter for pedestrians, and also reduce the width of the road, so cars tend to slow down a little bit more at those intersections because it's a little bit narrower there. So you've got the kind of the radius, and this is kind of how the speed slows down with the tighter radius there, so you get a little bit more traffic calming that way, is why those are being proposed. So and then the FHWA stat here reduces speeds by 3 to 12% using these bulb outs. So that's not huge, but it definitely is a noticeable difference. So in the signal rebuild, here's kind of what a signal rebuild would look like. Those signals out there now, these span wire signals, are kind of hard to see. The newer signal would be more visible, but once again, as that last table showed, it doesn't really give us a lot of safety improvement. You still have the the opportunity for cars to come in conflict there and do those broadside crashes, which we're trying to avoid. So here's the picture of the mini roundabout, and really what the benefit is here. You've got the way the intersection is now with the signal, you've got 30 different conflict points that cars can come in contact with each other through the left turns, right turns, and throughs and all that. There's a lot of places for cars to run into each other. And then if you do the roundabout here, really it reduces it down to only 8 conflict points. You've got the kind of the converging and the diverging here as cars come in and out of the roundabout here. It really reduces the potential for cars to come in conflict with each other. Is really the benefit of these roundabouts. And that's really why we're leaning towards reconfiguring these to be this roundabout configuration like this. So here's a little more stats on the mini roundabout benefits and things. It's obviously lower speeds there. You've got to slow down for the roundabout in the center there to go around it. And the crashes are not nearly as severe, and the conflict points are the other benefits of this. So there's kind of just some statistics here. The obviously those fatal crashes and the injury crashes, we get a big reduction in those, and why this is really a good benefit to converting these intersections into this new configuration. So and then the conflict points, obviously that's a 75% reduction there from 32 down to 8. So that's a really good benefit as well. You've also got reduced conflict points for peds and bikes as well. I've got another slide here kind of showing that and how that helps bikes and peds be a little safer through there as well, and they're not as many conflicts with vehicles. Here's the slide about the bike. There's probably some questions about how bikes can work their way through one of these roundabouts. So the first option is these purple arrows, where bikes can just simply merge with the traffic lane and get through the roundabout there, and then get back into the bike lane to continue on their way. That's probably for the more experienced riders that are comfortable riding with traffic. But the other option is bikes can also take the pedestrian route basically, and then dismount and come off. There's going to be a crosswalk right here, so they would come out onto the ADA ramp here, and they can use the sidewalk to come around here and then cross at the other crosswalk here, come back around, and then get back out into the bike lane and keep going. So that's for if you're not comfortable navigating through the roundabout with your bike, you can go down to the crosswalks and get across that way, and then get back out to the bike lane. So there's 2 different options for bikes there. And then here's a few more little benefits, I think, and the little highlights here. I don't know if I point any of these out. It's similar type information, the conflict points, and reduces vehicle speeds to 15 miles an hour, which is definitely something a little more safer for pedestrians to cross when the vehicles aren't going quite as quickly there. You can judge things a little bit better. But there is for the visually impaired, there is a bit of a challenge there. You know, there's no signal anymore, so there's no signalized sound or anything. So there's a little bit of a a challenge with that. That we got some feedback from city council on that. We're gonna try to see if there's a way to make it a little more safe for visually impaired pedestrians as well. But one benefit of the roundabout, it does allow pedestrians, they only have to cross one direction of traffic at a time, because you've got these center landing points here. So you're only looking at traffic from one direction at a time, then you can stop and wait for the other direction. You don't have to try to cross all at once. And there's a little bit of a refuge area out there, which is definitely a benefit for pedestrians when they're crossing these, to be able to see both directions a little better, and then pause if they need to if a car's coming the other way. So this here is the public outreach. That's what I really wanted to mention this evening to the group here. There's going to be this is actually going to be a website here that's going to look like this. It looks like a gymnasium. There's all these boards set up that you can click on each of these boards and see a lot of this information that I've shown here this evening. But there's also going to be a public feedback board that'll show the entire project corridor there and allow people to comment on different intersections and locations if they have any experience with them or any problems they've ever had with those, so we can get some of that feedback on what people are experiencing in the corridor there that we can use to improve the final design on this project. So this is going to go live next week, so we can send a link to this to the group as well if you want to look at this and put any comments in there. We'll certainly take any comments you have tonight as well on this. If you have any comments for me, I can take back to the design team and let them know if there's any thoughts you have on any of these concepts or things we're looking at. But otherwise, I think that's about it there. Here's the different exhibits that are going to be on these boards here in this public outreach open house there. It's kind of unique. It's similar to an open house, but it's online. It's open 24 hours, 7 days a week. So you can jump on anytime you want, look at the slides and provide feedback there. So it gives you a little more convenience there for people to see things and think about them a little more if you want to comment on them. So that's going to be going live next week. And then this roll plot thing will also be on that website there. It's got a little more detail about each intersection and kind of how the roundabout's going to look, and the mini roundabout, the configuration, how things would look. So you can, and you'll be able to basically take a little your cursor there and do a little thought bubble or a comment bubble and put it wherever you want on the drawing and make a note about something to think about or something you want the design team to be aware of there. So we're hoping we'll get some good feedback on this and be able to incorporate that into the final design as we move forward on this project. And here's the schedule here right now. We're looking at the public input process right now. As right before we get going the final design, we want to make sure we've incorporated any comments from the public as well as the committee here and city council. We've gotten feedback, so we're going to use that to inform the final design. And then we're hoping by it's going to take till next October to get the final design done. This is a CDOT project, so it takes a while to get through all the CDOT approvals and things. So it's, we're hoping to start construction about this time next year. We should be under construction and hopefully have the improvements done by spring of 2024 is how we're looking right now. So it's definitely a drawn out schedule. It's going to take some time, but we're definitely moving ahead on this one and trying to get things designed and approved so we can make these improvements to make the whole corridor safer for bike spreads and vehicles as well. So with that, I'd like to get any feedback or questions you have on the concepts here that I can take back to the design team and let them know if there's anything that you guys have any thoughts on or any consideration we might want to think about as we move forward on this. So I'll open it up to the committee for any thoughts.
Good, thank you. Yeah, Member Whitney, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Tim, thank you so much for this. This is great to see, and it's great to see the progress on it. I had a couple questions for you on some of those. I drive that quite a bit, going to my daughter's daycare, and I know I drive Logan specifically across Dartmouth, and it's a hill, and the same with Dartmouth. It's like kind of two hills are meeting. So I wasn't sure if that had a play to it, but also Logan itself, it's like long stretches of road meeting long stretches of road. So it's not necessarily Dartmouth is the problem itself, but it could be the combination of two, where you have two long stretches of open road where people are speeding down Logan and people are speeding down Dartmouth, causing the problem. So I was curious if there was analysis on which direction people were going that caused the accident most, if it was on Dartmouth, or if it was pretty much split and thus the roundabout takes care of it.
I'm not sure I have the exact split of which direction ran the light or whatever was in the way of the other vehicle. I think it was probably pretty well split. I think I'm not sure if there was one or the other. I just know that the type of crash is really what generated the concept of those broadside crashes. They're obviously one direction or the other is not yielding to the other during the traffic signal light. So it's I don't really know which direction, but either way, it definitely is going to improve the frequency of those anyway. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure if it is more Logan or more Dartmouth, but either way, it's still results in a broadside crash, and that's what we're trying to reduce or eliminate as many of those as we can by doing this configuration.
Absolutely. I did have a question about the configuration though. I know Dartmouth at certain times gets pretty congested. And I wasn't sure how this would affect the congestion, especially I think Logan going down into Broadway, I'm sorry if I missed that.
Well, so actually, this trying to find the slide here. This slide here kind of talks about this is operation level of service here. Is this row here, so it really doesn't affect the congestion rate. It actually improves it a little bit because you don't have to stop at the lights. It's kind of a continuous flow intersection, so you're able to, as you get to the intersection, you can continue on through. You don't have to wait for the light to change or whatever. So it definitely won't make it worse. And we're actually hoping to see a little bit of an increase in the effectiveness of the corridor there. People can move through there without being stopped at the lights as long or anything like that.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you. And then the last one is, I think the second to last slide of yours, or the third to last, where you show the two diagrams. One's has a red border and one has a green border. The border color, this is really just a minor thing, but the border color, actually keep going. One more, maybe that one. The border color makes it seem like the red one is not good and the green one's good. That's how I read it personally, was that except the green one, like that's the accepted design and the red is the failed design. So I don't know if anyone else read it that way, but just if this is going out for public feedback, maybe other people will psychologically think, oh, the red one's the bad one and we're only going with the green one. So minor feedback.
Differentiate the bulb out versus the roundabout. But yeah, it's a good observation. You're right. We don't want the red to make it seem like this is dangerous or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. So wonderful. Thank you so much for the presentation and everything. And I really do look forward to seeing what comes of this.
Thank you. Yeah. Member Diedrich, see your hand up, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see that we're moving forward on this. I like this project. I have a couple questions though. This slide that you're on right now was one of them I was going to ask about. So you're showing Logan and Dartmouth and Grant. Are these locations that you are already planning or going to put in the tests, or is this what you're looking for feedback from the public, or can you just clarify that? And I want to ask kind of follow on before you answer that, because on slide 4, you had the strip of Dartmouth and the cross streets, and some of them had the bulb outs. And so Logan here is an intersection safety evaluation, but on slide 16, it showed potentially a roundabout. So I was just curious, does that mean you're thinking for a roundabout at Clarkson and Downing as well? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, the intersection safety evaluation, that's where they're looking at whether to keep the signal or if the roundabout would be more efficient configuration. So yeah, that's and that other slide is basically just a typical what an intersection with the roundabout versus one with the bulb outs would look like. So each of these, it's basically just a blow up of each of these little symbols here. This is that other slide with the red and green shows that's what a bulb out intersection looks like, and then the other one's what a roundabout intersection would look like. So these 3 would be the roundabouts, and then the 5 would be those bulb outs on that other slide down here with the detail of those 2 different configurations there.
Okay, so on this one, and I apologize if you answered this. I switched machines so I could get my video on for you guys. So thank you for that. So are you actually, these are in progress, or these are going to go in and then we're going to get feedback, or is it public feedback on the imagery we're seeing here and the potential of putting something in?
Right. the second option you said there. Yeah, this is public feedback now we want on these potential options. So this won't go in until we get the feedback and incorporate that and then get the design done. But yeah, all of the intersections would be done at the same time. It wouldn't just be these two intersections as kind of like a trial or anything. These are just typicals of the whole corridor there. Each intersection would get one or the other of these treatments through that whole corridor.
Okay. When we had talked about this a little while back, when we were starting to kind of put together more of a plan for some traffic calming in this area, and there were a couple of things like sidewalks that we did a little while back. There were some good easy wins more on the east end of Dartmouth. But we talked about potentially doing some non-permanent long-term solutions like putting cones and striping out to test some of these things. And there were some examples that were kind of similar with how they did. And I'm talking back kind of early 2020, you know, they had shut down some streets in other parts of town and done some similar things. And so that was an option we talked about potentially doing to try these things out. I realized Dartmouth and Logan might not be the best place to put you know, temporary barriers and some striping instead of a traffic light per se, but is that still on the table to try maybe at some of the other intersections, especially for the bump out options versus the roundabout options?
I think the roundabout options are the ones where the signals are at, but that they are going to need to be roundabouts. The other ones are the unsignalized intersections that are the bulb outs are mainly for the traffic calming and to make it a little less feel a little less open for vehicles to get through there, I guess. So yeah, the thought is, yeah, the post and paint option that we are looking at on this, it is a little bit more of a temporary option just due to some of the budget restrictions. We're not sure we can afford to do 3 roundabouts and all these bulb outs with the $1 million we have. So we're looking at potentially doing the paint and post, but it wouldn't really be a temporary solution. It'd be more that would be the permanent configuration. And then the thought would be maybe later on if we get enough funding to make it all concrete, we can go out there and redo all the curb and gutter and everything and get this into a permanent configuration. But for now, more than likely, it would be more the similar to those other ones we did. It's a paint and post treatment there to, especially for the bulb outs. That's I think the option we're looking at now to get, since there's so many intersections, it's just a lot of concrete work we have to do. So we're probably going to do the paint and post similar to those other intersections where we did these bulb outs around the city.
Great, I appreciate that. Thanks for clarifying. And you know, that picture in the green box, it's got some nice new pedestrian access on the corners there. I can see the tread patterns. I know that the city just redid a lot of the corners of the gutter around the city. So you know, I think that's a good option and the update down the road, especially to see how it feels. I would be curious, you know, if have you guys thought about maybe doing a temporary 1 or 2 before the feedback section and let people try something out and get that type of feedback?
Yeah, but I haven't really thought about that. I think we've kind of been looking at it as the overall corridor there between Broadway and University, and then trying to slow it down through the whole corridor there. So there's not a start and stop thing. There's certainly something we can talk to the control about. There maybe would be an intersection that might be more appropriate to do something like that, just to see how it looks and how it operates. But yeah, the idea with the project is to do all the intersections with one project and then get them all adjusted with the bulb out or the roundabout, so the entire corridor is kind of treated that way for the maximum benefit of the traffic calming that we can get with these improvements.
Okay, I encourage all options, and you know, even if it's hopefully it's not an all or nothing, but if we can get even 1 or 2 in to try it out and see what the people think, would be interesting too. So thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
I have, I guess, 2 questions at this point. One is just looking at the map and seeing which intersections would get which treatment. There's a section that is it's pretty exciting in the way that streets line up on Dartmouth, where it's Vine to the north and Race to the south. And so I was curious if when it says Vine on the north here, that's that intersection that it's talking about is the one where it's Vine on the north and Race on the south.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that's the one.
Okay. And then there's some intersections that are not shown. So there's a spot where like Race and High meet up. And then Williams doesn't super meet up with anything. It's sort of in between Gilpin and Williams on the south side. And so I guess I was just sort of curious, like if the how the treatment would go through there. And also at there's a tricky spot with Dartmouth Circle right next to the Joshua School, where there is a school bus that goes into Dartmouth Circle now. And so now we've got kids on the south side of Dartmouth who are crossing into the Dartmouth Circle area. So if it would be possible to put in something there to make it easier for them to cross, that would be great. And that might be at the spot where, let's see, I guess it's Vine Street on the south of Dartmouth that tees into Dartmouth.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to the design team about that. I'm not sure what the thought was there.
Okay.
Yeah, for those that don't exactly line up there, the assumption at this point is that there probably wouldn't be any treatment at those intersections if they're not a full cross intersection there with the lineup like that. We probably wouldn't treat them at this point. But yeah, let me talk to them and see if there is a consideration for that or how that might fit into the overall plan. And that's some good feedback on how that plays in as well, because those are obviously places people try to access on the Dartmouth as well, and make sure that they can get onto the street and everything is consistent. So yeah, let me talk to them more about what the thought was there, because you're right, they're not even shown on the drawing here, which is a little bit confusing maybe to make sure it actually shows all the streets in the corridor there. And like I said, I think this drawing here is intended to show just the intersections that are going to be improved, but it would be helpful to show all of them just so you kind of know what's happening on which one. So I'll bring that back to them. That's a good point on that.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the other thought that I had was that I put in the Zoom chat that Race and Dartmouth has that paint and posts sort of bulb out treatment currently, with a sign in the middle of the road for about like pedestrians have right away in the crosswalk. And that went in, I don't know how long ago. It's been a year or two now, I think, and it's amazing. It's really effective for helping people to get across the street right there. I feel like it's really improved that, and it's a great spot to put it because just the nature of the streets there focuses foot traffic and bike traffic towards that spot. So I see a lot of people who use it, and I think that it's been very impactful and effective. One concern that I have about the full curb and gutter bulb outs is that it seems like it could push bicycle traffic to mix in with cars. And so I wonder if like the paint and posts bulb out might be a slightly better solution, because it would let like at Race right now, bikes can stay on the gutter side of the posts, and they're a little bit more, it's sort of like a protected bike lane for the 5 feet right there as they go through that spot. And so I'm not sure whether that would feel safer to, like, if bikes could be on the sidewalk side of those bulb outs, basically.
I think the concept now is the bulb out would come out right to the edge of the bike lane, and the bike lane wouldn't be reduced or anything. It would be the same width. But yeah, that's an interesting thought too. I'm not sure if there's, I guess we probably have to jog the bike lane over here somehow. I think the thought was to keep the bike lane straight through these, so there's not a go back in and back out or whatever. But yeah, I don't know if there's room really to get them behind the bulb out there. I think the thought is to just bulb it out enough to be at the edge of the bike lane and keep the bike lane where it's at. I think that's kind of the thought with this concept anyway.
Yeah, I think at Race it's sort of the similar situation where the bike lane stays straight, and so if a bicyclist knows that there's nobody behind them, or if they're comfortable with it, they can just stay in that. It is a relatively narrow bike lane, and it feels pretty close to the cars there. So I think what I've observed is that a fair number of folks are choosing to go into the bulb out area, where there is, I think, also a really nice placemaking detail with the green circles. So I feel like having a consistency of the treatments down Dartmouth would be a nice thing to do. But that's all the feedback I had. I'm really excited about this. I also feel like this is a great example, Member Heller, of your question about like, how do we know what's going on with projects? Because I was thinking about this one, and then here it is, progress is being made. We get to see a timeline, and so it's cool to thank you for that, showing that timeline and giving us this update.
Yeah, so are you saying that the bikes are actually going into the bulb out area on those existing ones? You can use that as an area?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting feedback too. I guess I never thought about that, but I guess that would be a more comfortable area to kind of wait for the intersection to cross or whatever. That's interesting. So it's good feedback as well. You're right. The paint post does allow that opportunity. There's no curb or anything. You can just pull right in there without a bump or anything. So it's unique, I guess. It's all good feedback. I always appreciate this committee. Your feedback is good. I'll bring it back to the design team and kind of let them know what's actually happening out there, and if there's anything we want to think about as we move through this, because we certainly want to do what we can to make it as beneficial as possible and have the most bang for the buck here. So that's good, good, interesting feedback there.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? Alrighty, see folks on mute, no hands raised. So then we had one more reappointment, the next agenda item, reappointments for Member Lewis and Member Diedrich, and a vacancy notice update for winter of 2023.
Is that you, Michelle? Are you going to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. It's just reappointments coming up for Member, I guess, Lewis and Diedrich. All we need is for you guys to reapply. The link is on that notice, and let me just put it up so I can see it. And we would also just need a letter of recommendation from Chair Knaddison, just for those two members. And everything is due, applications are due on Monday, December 5th at 5. And then the interviews will take place on Monday, January 19th of the following year. So I believe that is all the information. I'll provide everything else to the city clerk. So if you could just send me, not the applications, but Chair Knaddison, those letters, that'll be great.
I have a question or two for you.
Sure.
I'm excited. I have enjoyed being on this board. I'm going to reapply. Is this competitive? I don't think it's been competitive previously. It's like a recompete. I don't know if that matters too much, but we'll be applying. So I was curious about that. And I think for the letter of recommendation, I think just to verify it for Greg's sake, if he so chooses, the question is, can it be something as simple as I recommend Chris, signed Greg?
I believe so. An email, that's fine too. He can just shoot me an email for each candidate. And I believe the process is, it's not competitive because we allow the members, the current members, to apply first if they wish to do that. And then if they don't want to, or they're moving or whatever it is, I think that's when they post it for the public.
Okay, thank you. Oh, actually, I have another question. Do you know the term that is available for the two members reapplying? I don't know if either of us started on a odd term, backfilling somebody who left, or if it was at the beginning of a year, but just curious. And you can follow up with an email to me on that. You don't have to look that up right now. Just curious more than anything. Thank you.
I believe we were appointed at the same time, both of you. So it kind of, your term is up to like February 2023 or something like that. So that's why we need to reapply, but I can confirm with the city clerk's office.
That's what I see on the website as well, is that both of your terms were February 3rd, 2019 until February of 2023.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're interested in reapplying, Chris. And what do you say, Member Lewis? What, you want to give it another go? Okay. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I've written a letter of recommendation before, and was it was an easy process last time, so I'm happy to do that again. And yeah, any other thoughts or questions on that subject? Okay, well, to keep the rest of the process going quickly, maybe if anybody has for the different, we're to the section director's choice, chairperson's choice, committee member's choice. So if anybody has any topics they want to talk about, please raise your hand so we can just move through that a little bit quicker. And I'll say that I don't have any topics to talk about tonight that weren't already on the agenda. So going next to anybody who chooses to raise their hand.
Nothing in particular here.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Alrighty, Member Diedrich.
Thank you. Thank you. Here, I'm pulling up my list here as I switched computers. I thank you again for your patience with that. Very quickly, and I think these can go. Let's see. I apologize. I'm curious with the code enforcement. I wasn't sure if I should bring this up earlier, but regarding like the cars by the schools parking a certain distance from the stop signs, just generally throughout the community, is it 30 feet? I just wanted to confirm, is that the distance behind a stop sign that you're not allowed to park? Is that correct? And then this follow-up is who, like, if there are issues with that, who should be contacted? Something like maybe a construction dumpster or something that may be placed in a way that it obstructs the view around the corner, or whatever it may be. Who is the enforcement on that? And yeah.
I think the best option on that is to submit a Q alert through the city system there. If you submit that Q alert, it'll go to the traffic group and they'll make sure they get somebody out there to look at that. If it's a PD enforcement, or if we need to do some kind of a reconfiguration of the signage or whatever. But yeah, if you put the, I think it's Englefix, I think it's the technical term, or the brand term, and then that's the fastest way to get a response on something like that. If you see something like that, put a request in, and we'll get that to the right person to get something handled on that.
Okay. And then I guess as a follow-on relatedly, for right-of-way infringements, maybe it's the alley or a sidewalk or something, construction fencing, for instance, if that's blocking those areas, is that a code enforcement thing, or does that go through building inspections that verify that the fences are supposed to be up?
Well, that's a public works thing again. That would be a right-of-way permit. If somebody's blocking the sidewalk, they should have a permit to do that, and they'll have a detour plan to tell people how to cross over and get around the detour. So yeah, if you see something like that, it's probably best to put in one of those Q alerts. You can call the main public works number as well and let them know, and they'll get an inspector over there to check that out and make sure they have a permit. And if they don't, we'll make sure they get it. But that's public works enforces on those types of things in the right-of-way.
Okay. And then the last thing that I have, and maybe we don't need to go too deep into it since I didn't get it on the agenda tonight, but I'd like to bring it up to the group, is that I've been hearing there are some of the, this is related to trash in alleys. And I know we've had a lot of discussion about that, but I've heard that some of the providers that were providing some of the alley service are no longer providing alley service. And the reason I want to bring that up here is because of the transportation committee issue, but also there's now some issues with the city municipal code where you're not allowed to keep trash cans in your front yard. And there are houses that are part of row homes that do not have an option other than bringing a large trash receptacle, through their house. Or it's just, there's potential for an issue. And I know we've talked a lot about that situation in this committee a lot. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I've heard that the one of the alley providers is leaving, and I'm not sure if there are any left. And I think it's only legacy customers that still retain that in some respects. So I think there's a conflict there, especially in the zones for multifamily. So just something to consider. I don't know how deep you want to get into that at all tonight, but something I wanted to bring up to make sure the city was aware of, and maybe this committee can have an opportunity to help with that as we have with other things in the past related to that. But this is a little more specific on the municipal code side. So I don't know if anybody has any other comments on that, but just wanted to share that.
Chris, I could jump in at least. So I'm aware of waste management sending out postcards to citizens that they're no longer be providing alley pickup. We're going to be discussing it on Monday night during the end of the session. We wouldn't be able to talk about code issues today because it wasn't part of the agenda. If anybody wanted to chime in, so couldn't get into deep discussion. But at the very least, I have been contacted by many people about waste management pulling out it. And I've heard the same thing, Chris, in terms of Republic or Waste Connections not taking on new customers. So those are going to be some of the things that we'll be discussing. And thanks for bringing up about the code, about the potential impact of having to have trash cans in the front yard visible, I guess, in a sense, for certain residents. So that's something I'll bring up as well.
All right. Thank you. Good to hear it's on the agenda. Thanks. That's all I had for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for the great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Member Whitney, go ahead.
I have a question in a similar vein as Member Diedrich. If last time I was here, I can't remember if it was a couple months ago or when, but someone contacted Public Works about doing a speed evaluation by the school shoot, I'm just blanking on the school corners of Floyd, I think, or Eastman, and some road, but because they said a lot of people were going too fast through the intersection. I was curious, would a question like that go through Englefix as well? Like, can we do a speed study specifically for a Lottie, kind of around the bend where it goes Yale into a Lottie down, just by the, it's residential and commercial in that area, so people tend to go pretty fast. And so I just was curious if that goes to Englefix or if I should put a request in there, or how that works. And then with the massive apartments going where Winslow Crane are, I can see the speed also increasing there. Chair Kane Eastman, thanks. Member Knaddison.
That would be an Englefix request. You could put that in. That's when we get those requests for speed studies. We can check that out. If there's
Okay.
speeding on an area, that's how we find out about those, and we could do a study and then verify what's going on there. If there's anything needs to be done to try to more enforcement or any kind of infrastructure signage we might need to do to try to calm it down. But that is definitely a request through the Englefix, and we'll take a look at that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's my only thing. So thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you. I forgot about Englefix, so it's good to be reminded of it. Looks like we have no other topics, so we can call this meeting to a close. Thank you all for your time tonight. Hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you in a bit.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.